historical elements. I think that if we're going to do a wayfinding program, we should do it right and not have to do it twice. I'd also like to see the art commission and potential environmental commissions and things have a little bit of input on this, on what it would look like. I'd love to see some city branding incorporated with different areas and districts, like the historic downtown, Paseo Santa Fe, things like that have their own maybe designs so that you can kind of see when you're moving through different areas within the city, they're branded slightly differently, and things like that. And I think that was everything. Wow. But yeah, so I very much support this. I really want to support our small businesses, and whatever we can do to do the best for them. I think that we should do the best we can and go all out. So thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yeah, I actually appreciate your comments, Deputy Mayor. To have a more comprehensive program, I think would be great. My only concern, I'm not saying I don't support it because I absolutely do. My only concern is I don't want it to impede this particular item in the moment, only because the reason this was brought forward to me to begin with was because a lot of the businesses were suffering, especially once their A-frame signs, they were getting cited for it. When COVID hit, they didn't have them, or the ability to put them out. So if it wouldn't impede even, but I mean, an RFP would kind of, I think, and I see Mr. Conley wants to speak, but an RFP, I think, would be able to fully encompass this whole program, or?
Well, I wanted to clarify, we implemented a wayfinding program citywide, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. There's signs around the city that have the civic locations and parks and historical locations in that program. It sounds like there's some desire to revisit that program, which we can absolutely do. But I think it needs to be separate from what was initially started here, which was a brewery, winery, tasting room, artistic sort of wayfinding program that we could implement to locate those businesses and be more of a monument to that industry in the city. So that was our plan. But we can come back to look at our wayfinding program citywide because I think it takes a little bit of a different look.
Can we do that in the relative near future? And the only reason why is I think there's an appetite from this council. I don't want to compare us to Savannah, Georgia, because our historical differences are vast. However, I was there last November, and they have walking tours. They have like a 27-point guided walking tour. Our layout is very different from the compact nature of that city. But if there's a way that we can try and encompass something like that, either through video tours or just even walking maps or whatever it might be, if we can find a way to encompass that to highlight all the historical areas, but also just the vibrant areas as we continue to grow. And as the city continues to grow and we have new businesses and different things flourishing, I think that it would be something that would be good to bring back and have a larger discussion on, because I think the strategic expansion will only benefit local businesses for decades to come as our city continues to grow, especially with the general plan that we're looking at. So, yeah, I mean, I like all the ideas. I'm happy to bring that back and support it and have a larger discussion about it. And I'll look forward to that, but I appreciate the support on this item.
I'm going to jump in. Yeah, I think we need to have more of a conversation about the wayfinding. How much money are we thinking this consultant is going to cost us? Another $500,000?
No, we're estimating $25,000 for wayfinding design.
Okay, that'd be better. It's always $500,000 anytime a consultant. Will they be? But they will be from Harvard, right? Yale, Columbia, one of those. They're more expensive when they've had an Ivy League education. No, seriously, I think we absolutely can. Other cities have, like San Marcos, they had the names of their commercial property developers, and somehow they were able to keep people from buying nasty messages on their, John, you remember the wayfinding signs they had.
We'll look into it.
I think if Matt wanted to buy Don't Drink and Drive, actually, I think we should put that on there voluntarily. I think it should have a drink responsibly message on it, don't you all? I think it's a great idea. We should include that. But I actually think we could, and I think we should charge business owners a reasonable amount of money that would recover our investment only, so that way the city's not out anything, but we're the only ones that have the franchise and can do something like this. So I think it's reasonable when we add their name or take it off. There's a cost to that, and to ask them to cover that cost, I think is entirely reasonable because it's a commercial benefit, a marketing expense for their business. So I think there's more that we could do there. I mean, we don't need to have 10,000 of these things, but if, just even a few of them along Sycamore or the other corridors, like Councilmember O'Donnell said, my only, my only concern of unintended consequences at first was the idea that Sycamore could have a lot of A-frame signs if we didn't have a way to regulate that. By the way, I think maybe we should take a look at regulated signs for temporary purposes that maybe exceed, but very limited time. And there should be a cost and a permit, and that covers our costs. Because, again, I'll repeat, as a small business owner, I want to help our small businesses and understand that they, particularly on your own property, it's tough because you know it when you drive through a city that doesn't have the right ordinances. You know it in a second, and I'm not going to name the names because some of those cities, I'm friends with their council people and mayors, but their cities don't look as beautiful as ours because they haven't been as thoughtful in their sign ordinances. This is super important to property values and to the way people feel in the look of our city as they drive through. So we got to get it right. But I think this is a good first step. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just a few more comments on this. I do appreciate the distinction, right? That, not so much, a city-owned billboard, right? But that these are indicators of general economic attractions, right? And that for this discussion, we're really focused on those craft breweries, right? And wineries and, other locations for people to enjoy. And then I do think that I think amongst our council, there is an appetite for placemaking and maps and, creating that attraction, right? And that tourism where people can, when they land their little spaceship here in Vista, they know how to find their way through all of what Vista has to offer. So I totally support, taking an approach where we're looking at the economic attractions when it comes to our breweries and wineries and all of that. And then perhaps maybe it's with the same consultant, maybe it's a separate discussion. I think staff would help us, find the strengths there, be able to identify, how can we create some more comprehensive maps that maybe incorporate some of the previous wayfinding that we've done that, I appreciate the previous signs that the city has produced, right? But just to incorporate it into something that, is more comprehensive, like the walking tours that you're describing. So I think that we're moving forward in a good direction. Thanks.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I just wanted to lend support to bifurcating this discussion and moving forward with this recommendation, and then just bringing back to the council wayfinding. I think we also have this opportunity right now as we're building our protected bike lane network to kind of keep that in mind when it comes to wayfinding, and potentially for some kind of a larger, more comprehensive wayfinding and public art program, kind of just like wrapping everything in one. I mean, that's something that we could even look to our partners at the chamber to see if they could lend us, a hand with that. But I love the direction that this discussion is going in, and I think I completely agree with Deputy Mayor that I think this council does have an appetite to tackle that issue and just make it easier for folks to figure out where they are in the city and where they want to go. And great opportunities on the horizon. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That item is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to item PH3, our final public hearing regarding vegetation management and a defensible space ordinance. The public hearing is now open. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature by pressing *9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation from our Fire Chief, Gerard Washington.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, and City Manager. Gerard Washington, Fire Chief, City of Vista, Vista Fire Protection District. I have with me today Deputy Chief Brett Davidson, Brett Davidson, who is our subject matter expert when it's all inclusive of vegetation management, defensible space, as well as Deputy Chief Robbie Ford and Maya, our management analyst. We came before you a couple of months ago regarding weed abatement and looking for support with an ordinance that we were going to update to assist us with vegetation management. And here we are today to discuss it. Wildfire risk, as we all know that Vista has a mixed severity zones from moderate to very high severity zones, which makes proactive fire prevention essential. This is the one thing I stated before is the only thing we can control is the preventive part of this. And so with the ordinance, vegetation management and support of this, it will make this district as well as the city much safer for our residents and visitors. California experiences frequent fast-moving wildfires due to dry vegetation, hot temperatures, and strong winds. And that's the one thing that I have learned here being the fire chief versus the city of Milwaukee and snow and tornadoes. This is something that I've never experienced, but we have a very robust group of individuals working on this. How can we reduce the risk? Be proactive, and by that, we're going to save lives, guaranteed. But we also have to make sure as we roll out this ordinance that we don't cause any undue harm in that there is a cost to cleaning out some of these properties. And we're going to discuss that a little bit here. Brett, you want to speak on that, the local responsibility area maps?
So these are the local hazard the local hazard severity zones. The state of California just released them on March 24th. We have to adopt them by ordinance. We've met with CAL FIRE and discussed these areas. As you can see, they are a little different than the old maps, but they're based on 20 years of weather history, and they look at the top 10% of the weather events that we have in Vista, and then they do their fire behavior calculations. So if you look at these models, all of these models and the threat to the city is from our east. So in the fire district area that is around, and then from Deer Springs and San Marcos, and then in the south of the city, you can see basically the canyon. So when we get a wildland fire and it's wind driven, think about water pouring off the mountains, and it's going to follow the path of least resistance. It's going to follow our heavy stream beds and into the city, and then kind of branch out and go into the community. So our goal is to reduce the fuels in the creek beds, along the creekways, around homes, and around the canyon rims. We're working on several fuel abatement grants right now to try to do fuel reduction and defensible space within the city.
The ordinance. The City of Vista and Vista Fire Protection District have updated the ordinance to strengthen wildfire prevention efforts and enhance community safety. Additionally, the updated requirements support homeowners in maintaining compliance with insurance standards. Why was this added? What was added? Defensible space zones, Zone 0, 1 and 2, and vegetation management, which we will hit here. Before that, let's talk about a couple of community meetings we had earlier this month. The mayor alluded to it earlier during our proclamation. We've held two. We've had fairly decent turnout, but we're looking to add a third one. We're working with our fire prevention team as well as the insurance group that has helped us with this. And so we may try and pull off one more before June 2nd. And we're hopefully can have it in a community room that we can have more city residents to attend. Defensible space, a buffer zone around a structure that slows the spread of wildfire and provides firefighters room to defend a home. It's required by law, as Brett mentioned, for all properties in wildfire-prone areas. These are the three zones that we're speaking of. Zone 0 is 0 to 5 feet, Zone 1, 5 to 50 feet, and Zone 3, 50 to 100 feet. Did you want to discuss this a little bit, what some of the requirements will be?
Sure. So these fall in line with what the state's doing and what the county's doing. Our fire protection district has been progressive, and they're adopting the same ordinance that you see here. The most restrictive is 0 to 5 feet. There's going to be a 3-year rollout because we know that this is going to be the hardest for people to comply with. But zone 0 is important because most of the homes in our community are not going to be hit with direct flame impingement. Some of them will be hit by radiant heat from the flames, but almost all of them that are endangered are going to be hit with firebrands. So it turns kind of daylight to darkness, and you get, instead of rain coming down, it's a shower of embers that come down. Really, how most houses burn down is those embers hit the side of the house and they either enter the attic space, or they fall down and they hit mulch, or they hit material that's next to the home. So what we're asking in zone 0 is for mulch to be removed away from that 5 feet zone. We want trees to be trimmed up past the roof line that are already there. If they're an orange tree or a short shrub that's less than 6 feet, at least have it trimmed a third above. We know that this is going to be pretty hard, so we're going to do a soft rollout over the next 3 years to try to educate people more than doing enforcement. But in zone 0, 1, and 2, we want all dead vegetation removed. So that means, and probably the big lift here in Vista is the dead palm fronds. So we know that palm trees, from a lot of the pictures, are, when they catch on fire in the wind, they send fire embers and they hit all kinds of houses downwind of them. So we want to make sure that we remove all that dead inside those zones. And then most of them it's just fuel reduction in 0 to 50 feet, 0 to 100. This slide here shows that fuel reduction zone where the trees are all trimmed up 6 feet and any of the dead ground fuel as far as the dead grasses are removed. So you can see that the picture on the left is before, the picture on the right is after, and this is much safer in the event of a fire. The flame lengths and the rate of spread would be much lower in the picture to the right. So our objective to the vegetation management program is really, we're trying to fall in line with what the state's doing. These are all scientific recommendations from Underwriters Laboratories, who've done all the testing in their laboratory on firebrands, construction material, and best practices. The insurance companies have been using these regulations because it adds to their probability of success or payout. What we're trying to do is pass an ordinance that's in line with the science and in line with those recommendations, and it is our best chance for our community to become insured. So we're looking at passing this ordinance will also assist us in applying for a fire risk reduction community, which will help ensure that all of our citizens have the best chance at a decent fire insurance rate and hopefully not get dropped. And a lot of people are struggling with that, especially in that urban interface area. So this is the big lift here is removing dead palm fronds. You can see the beard on the left of that tree will need to be removed. Some people that haven't done this can be quite expensive, so we are looking into as many grant opportunities as we can. The fire district is looking at, we've been speaking with them about possible grant opportunities, and then we've been looking at fuel mitigation grants through Cal OES to try to reduce and get low-income or socioeconomically deprived citizens a way to have their house cleaned up and come into compliance quicker, because the more people we get to come into compliance, this is a community effort. It makes our whole community safer. Trees here, 6 feet up, and then brush. We do manage brush in the 50-foot and the 100-foot zone. They need to be trimmed to 5 feet and no wider than 10 feet. So these are kind of just the highlights of the tree issues that we run into in the 50 and 100-foot zone.
And these are the same PowerPoints we've shown the residents at the 2 community meetings, and this is what we use for the 3rd. All this information will be out there for public consumption. As we stated earlier, it's a slow rollout. It's a change for the city in particular, and so we want to ensure that everyone's well informed and educated when it comes to preventing what happened up north here. And so when we talk about things to remember, it's know your evacuation routes, have a plan, and have that emergency kit, go kit. A lot of people believe it won't happen to them or they have enough time to evacuate. And if you wait too late, you may not be able to get out. safely. It's also important that you do not use the fire access roads in which we, the fire department responding to the incident, need in order to mitigate these situations. And the way you learn about it is, like you do in school, you educate yourself. We will have our inspectors out answering questions. They've already hit, as a matter of fact, the district, individual in the district had an event at their home in which we came out and did a presentation relative to the new ordinance and the recommendations of what we're looking for. So it's a group effort, and that's the thing that we ask the council as well with your constituents, just to remind them that, hey, there's some changes coming, and that if they have any questions or concerns, we are available for that. But the big is the go bag. Have it together, especially if you take medications, important things that you do not want to lose in case your house does catch fire. Here are some apps that you could download on your phone that will assist you. I'll let Brett talk a little about each app, because he's my subject matter expert.
So Alert San Diego, you can sign up through County OES. So your cell phones, your hard lines at home, any disaster information. The folks that were signed up to Alert San Diego when we had the earthquake last week all got notified from the County of San Diego. So those work really well. That's a great app to have on your phone. The Genesis Protect app is our evacuations. So the law enforcement and fire are using the Genesis Protect Act. It was developed after the Paradise Fire in 2016 burned down the city of Paradise up in Northern California, and most of the state is adopting that program, but we've chopped up Vista into polygons that make sense for communities to evacuate in an event of a fire. We evacuate anything that's within 2 hours of a fire threat immediately with the sheriff's office, becomes an evacuation order. Anything beyond that, usually by about a half mile, becomes an evacuation warning. And we work close with law enforcement in order to make sure we liaison and do that. The third app here is Watch Duty. Now, Watch Duty is a private app. It's I believe it's a not-for-profit. They don't charge anything, and you can sign on to it. It shows the Genesis Protect evacuation maps, but it's not as fast or up to date all the time as the Genesis app. That's why we recommend that. However, Watch Duty is what we look at when we're looking at new starts in San Diego. They're tied to the UCSD cameras, the one that we have here in Vista that sits on the mountaintop. That one, if it detects something, it'll take a picture, notify dispatch. And a lot of those pictures from those UCSD cameras are the first pictures you see on the Watch Duty app. And then people will listen to the radio traffic and post what the initial attack is. So a lot of times when we see a fire, we'll look at the initial start and then we'll look at the camera and we'll determine whether we're moving everybody towards it. So we'll send a single engine, but Robbie, if he sees smoke anywhere in the county, if it's on that camera, he's already en route.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Just be aware. And then the Pulse Point app, the last one, that is for CPR. The nice thing about Pulse Point is it's integrated into the CAD system. So if you want to know what calls your engine company is going on or what the city of Vista is doing or Oceanside next to you, you can sign up for all their calls and you can limit it to structure fires or medical aids, but you can see the whole call volume of the city. And then for Pulse Point, we always want to increase our survival rates, and we have a great survival rate. The average survival rate in the country for cardiac arrest hovers anywhere between 5 and 10%. Here in the city of Vista, we've got about 20 to 25% save rate for cardiac arrest, CPR, people surviving more than 24 hours after the hospital and having their functions not too limited. So we have a good record for that, but part of that is getting the community involved, and our dispatchers provide CPR information on dispatch on 911, but that Pulse Point app, if you're willing, it'll notify you if somebody goes down with CPR and calls 911 within 100 yards of your location so that you can go and perform CPR. Doesn't alert you if it's somebody's private residence, but if they are in a public area, it alerts everybody. So a lot of people watch it just for the call volume, and some people watch it because they want to engage in the community and perform CPR.
Here's a community event that's occurring May 3rd, and it's a chipping event. And our fire inspector, James, will be the point of contact for those residents in the city and district that have debris that fits a certain qualification that can be chipped, shredded. Any questions, you can give James a call or email him, and he'll be more than happy to assist. And again, we're always trying to be proactive and assist the residents with coming in compliance with the ordinances and the changes that are forthcoming. So we do appreciate the support from the council, the city manager's office, and all those involved. Before I wrap up here, I got to thank the city attorney's office. They put a lot of hours into updating this ordinance and working with the district's legal as well. It was a heavy lift, and we do truly appreciate that support. And it was a team effort, fire prevention folks, our staff. It was pretty impressive to watch this unfold. So again, thank you for your continued support, and we will look forward to working with you as we move into this new day in the city of Vista and the district.
Great work. Thank you, Chiefs. Now we're going to hear from our public speaker, which is our friend John Plotz, member of the Board of Directors of the Vista Fire Protection District.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll be brief. As Chief said, we've spent a lot of time on this. We're a single issue government agency. Unlike y'all, we don't have to be experts on everything. But we're very interested in fire and emergency services in the district. We represent about 20,000 people on the perimeter of Vista in the county area. We've spent a lot of time on this, and our board has adopted this ordinance. And I'm just here to urge you to do the same. We're working very, very well with Vista Fire Rescue and with all of you, and I appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you. We appreciate the partnership. And our last speaker on this item is Kimberly Cross-Purdy.
Hi, good evening. First and foremost, thank you so much. I'm so glad this is a topic of discussion. My neighbors and I have been actually discussing this for quite some time about, especially in the park. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Bub Williamson Park has quite a bit of dead palm fronds, a lot of dead leaves and trees that are down in the park area that when we were talking about the park a couple years ago that we were very concerned about. We do have a heavy equipment business not too far, so if that goes up or there's fireworks going off, the park is going to be the first thing that goes up in flames. I also want to mention the fact that the school is also there, and they use the park as a way to evacuate students in the case of an emergency. So if we have a higher risk in the park of having a fire, it's really something that needs to be coordinated with the school district to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe in the neighborhood. And then the last piece that I wanted to ask about or mention is, are we partnering with the schools? I love this idea of bringing back the idea of these emergency go bags. And I think it'd be really great for us to find other ways to communicate. And kids coming home and telling their parents about what they learned at school is a great way to do that. And I think that, I think between those two things, on top of everything else you're talking about tonight, are very positive steps to keep our city safe. And I'm very grateful to hear that that's what we're doing. So thank you so much.
Okay, Councilmember O'Donnell.
I really appreciate that comment, because one of the things I was going to say is I'm willing to host a town hall and work with RBV to try and do it at that location so we have a larger audience, a larger place to go, and can get it out to more members of the community. So that's a great thought that you just had. One of the things, you'll be happy to know I'm getting rid of all the mulch around my new house. I can't stand mulch, and it is really annoying to me, so I'll be doing that in short order. I also just planted an orange tree, but it's 20 feet from the house, so I don't have to worry about trimming it how you want it done. The question I have, though, so I previously have had a palm tree removed from my home. I had ranges of $250 to $1,000 to remove it. Are we working with any specific group, or is it something, I don't know if we need to put out a bid for a contract, but is there a group or organization or business that we can work with that will guarantee a rate if somebody wants to remove a palm tree or want to have it trimmed versus having such a wide range of pricing?
Yeah, you have a wide range of pricing. Doing tree work, if they get up into the tree, is more hazardous than just cutting and removing the tree. Most of the trees are very situational. It depends on how close they are to a house, because they have to be insured and bonded. If you don't use somebody that's insured and bonded, the price is a lot less, but if they hit your house. So it's a wide variety.
Or if they happen to crack a stone on...
Yeah. So Public Works is doing an RFP. We are also doing bids because we're looking at fuel abatement criteria. And just like our member of the Community Express, we've evaluated all the fire stations. We know that they need to come in compliance with the new ordinance. We're also looking at our public property. We've met with Public Works and our city manager and identified work that we need to get done in our creeks, in our waterways, and we're striving to find workforce development money in order to help the economically deprived so we can do those things. But we're not allowed as a public agency to recommend one private business over another. So there's not a lot we can do as far as you hiring them, but there are certainly our best practices to make sure that you hire somebody that's bonded, insured. And it's hard to say with trees because we would like the people that we're getting bids from to give us just a bid on how much is it going to cost per acre. And we've gotten bids of about $19,000 an acre when it comes to, it being full of brush and the amount of trees. But when there's trees on it, it varies quite a bit because it's situational on the base diameter of the tree, the type of tree, and how hazardous it is to remove.
Yeah, and I know there's multiple different types of palm trees that all produce the same amount of, well, some more than others, but produce the same fire hazard equally, So I don't know if that'd be a question then for our city attorney, and maybe not put out a contract or anything, but would it be legal to compile a list of people that we know we can, not that we can work with, but that residents can work with?
Yeah, we can compile a list. The city can compile a list of known contractors and provide it as a community service for sure. Just not recommending one or the other, but here's a list of Vista businesses or, that.
Yeah, I certainly think we should do that just so people, it kind of takes the hassle out. I mean, the guy that I hired, I literally saw him cutting my neighbor's tree, and that's the only reason why I hired him. So to have a comprehensive list, not even comprehensive, just a few people that we know that we could trust to go into these neighborhoods or work with the community that are going to be a more affordable price, I think would be really good. But those are all my comments. I'm happy to work with you again in the community in District 4 to try and get the word out. So let's sit down and figure out when that would work best. And then I'll just make the motion to close the public hearing and adopt the recommendations.
Councilmember Fox.
Perfect. I'll second that motion. And also, I had the wonderful opportunity to join you gentlemen at the Fire 101 event not that long ago, and I got to see kind of how you do the staging for where the fire's going and all that communication that goes into it. And so I'm very impressed with that, and you guys do an amazing job there. I'd also like to thank you for your great communication with the residents, with doing all these different town halls and everything, and trying to get this information out. That's a really important. Obviously, a ordinance that people don't know about, it can't be followed. So thank you for all your hard work on that. And lastly, I just wanted to thank our fire protection district for being ahead of the game on that and already updating their ordinance. I know that they share a lot of border with District 2, especially right where we have a lot of that fire danger. So them being ahead of the game and adopting this ordinance themselves keeps my district safe as well. So that's all of my comments for today, but thank you very much.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. And this fire hazard severity zone, is this the updated map
Yes, it is.
from this year? Okay, and that's on our GIS now?
It's not quite on the GIS. We have 120 days from March 24th to adopt it.
Okay.
By government code, we have to adopt it. I called them. We had a meeting with CAL FIRE. There's no really modifying it. There's a lot of cities that are upset about it and trying to reduce the area. And the state's made it clear that they're not changing it and they're not modifying it. And by government code, they have to provide it, and we have to accept it. But we are in the works. You will see an ordinance coming up to accept those areas. But we are doing everything we can to mitigate the danger. We are inspecting all the homes in the medium, high, and very high danger zone. Our inspections, you guys know, went from 1,900 to 7,100 lots last year. And we are working hard to get voluntary compliance. Out of that, only 0.5% went to forced abatement this last year. So we really, out of 7,000 inspections, less than 30 went to forced abatement. So we're really working with homeowners as much as we can to get voluntary compliance. That is our goal.
Okay, so with the 120 days, so will we be seeing that sometime in fall maybe or sooner?
Yeah, hopefully you'll be seeing it sooner than that.
Okay. Yeah, just curious, because I know that when it was updated, it's a lot more red than it was before. And there's not really much that you can do to change it because that's just the outcome of climate change and extreme weather that comes along with it. I am curious when it comes to looking at some of these areas that are just realistically very prone to fire. Are we looking at hardening via undergrounding? Because I've never heard of any kind of discussion that we've had at the council about hardening in some of these areas, because there's still old infrastructure when it comes to different wires and whatnot. So are we going to be having a discussion about that? Is there a discussion? I know that the dollar figure would be extremely high, but I think it's a topic that we should be talking about.
So we don't have a program, City of Vista. I know SDG&E is in their own process of looking at undergrounding in areas where there's high fire potential, but they took our money away that they used to give us for undergrounding, so we don't really have a revenue source for it. Because it's SDG&E's liability. If their lines start the fire, it's their responsibility to underground. So we do not have any plan at this point to underground their lines.
Do we even have an understanding of which ones we would want to prioritize so that we could put pressure on SDG&E?
It would be easy to identify those lines in the high fire prone areas. A lot of the areas have newer development and do have undergrounded lines, but yeah, as far as identifying the ones that we'd want to prioritize, that's simple to do.
I really think that we should have a discussion on prioritization, understanding that I think the last time that we undergrounded, it was like $1 million for a quarter mile or something. So I understand that that's extraordinary when it comes to trying to underground everything. But I think at minimum, if it's fairly doable just with staff time to be able to have a prioritization list of those lines that we should see undergrounded, because I think it really behooves the council to do everything in our power to really put a lot of pressure on SDG&E. And I think it's a way for us to, when it comes to a legislative platform, or when we're speaking with our representatives at the state and federal level, to provide them with this list of prioritization. I don't know if there's still funding out there for undergrounding, but I do recall some years ago, Congressman Mike Levin talking about certain funds for that. So I would just think it's really critical for us to have that discussion, come back to council sometime this year, so we can look at that. And while we're talking about prioritization, there was a call out about our creeks and some vegetation management in the creeks. And I have a similar question about the creeks, in that do we have a prioritization of our creek beds, and do we, for which ones should be managed immediately, and if we do, what is a cost estimate? So is that a discussion that we have started, or is that also something that we need to be seeing come to the council for discussion? Because I really do think that we should be having a prioritization list for those creek beds. And I'm all a fan too of getting some goats, getting them in the creek beds or wherever they need to go. But understanding that there is a cost to mitigate when we're in the creek, and there's different laws and regulations. There's a ton of invasive species in there. We already know, like the creek bed by Hacienda, has had several fires started at different encampments. So I'll just give you a second to answer. Do we have a prioritization?
Yes.
And if so, do we have a cost estimate?
So yeah, actually, Public Works and the city Public Works has been doing a good job getting CEQA documents, getting permit. They handle all the drains and the drainage in there. So that's been terrific. We've been looking at prioritizing the creek bottoms. Our first priority is Vista Way, all the way through Hacienda down to the Costco. And then we've got even further down from that, we're looking at a fuel abatement grant for that. Like you said, there's a ton of invasive species. Realize that all the eucalyptus and the Mexican palm frams, or palm trees, are all invasive species. We don't need a CEQA permit to remove invasive species. We also recognize the fact that we have a significant homeless population in that area. Last year, we had 35 fires in that area, and I feel like we're playing Russian roulette with the weather. All we need is really a high wildland day on one of the 35 days we have one of those fires, and that fire is going to run the distance of wherever it starts in that creek bottom. So we are proactively looking for fuel mitigation funds. We're looking at workforce development grant money. We're doing everything we can to prioritize that area and remove as much fuel as we can out of that area.
Okay, well, I would love to see that, I love that we're going for grants. Money's drying up everywhere. Money's drying up here, but this is a huge priority. And I think if you already are developing a plan, I think it would be really great for the council to at least have a discussion about that, so that if we aren't able to pursue grants, that we could potentially create a phased approach, understanding that we probably can't tackle the enormity of the issue all at once, but at least we could do it in a phased way. And the creek bed that we're talking about, I mean, if there is a situation with a fire, we also have the freeway, which would end up shutting down the freeway. What does that do for emergency and evacuation? Huge concern. And then on the plus side, if we are able to have some more vegetation management, bring more visibility to the area, we can also potentially, this is just a dream of mine, but be able to connect folks to the new Madrigal Park somehow, using that creek bed, having more activity on it. Potentially that's something that we could build into the vision for 10 years down the road. I'm not sure, but now the other thing is, when it comes to evacuations, do we do any modeling of evacuation scenarios? And if so, I don't recall ever seeing that information as a council member, but I don't know if it's confidential or what the situation is, but I would love to see that, and potentially that's something that we can also have a discussion with the public about, because some of these areas in Vista, we just know that folks are going to be stuck in traffic trying to evacuate all at once.
So yeah, the Genesis app has the evacuation routes marked. We went over all of them, and they're in there. They're pre-plumbed into the system for the sheriff's office so that we know those roads. We can shut down both roads. Generally, we're looking at 10,000 cars per hour per lane. We can double that if we shut it down and send them one way. But we work with the sheriff's office with that. With the fuel mitigation, I know that Chief Washington will reach out to you guys as we look for federal and state grant funding. We're always looking for support from our political leaders in order to gain support and gather a better chance at acquiring those grants.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what we're here for, and we want to be advocating to the electeds higher up than we are. But